Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for SEFLIN's Social Services and Libraries discussion group. Today, we have a really just a great treat. Judy Weaver. She is a yoga therapist and a yoga teacher of teachers with over 30 years of experience as the founder of Connected Warriors and Bodymind Recalibration. Judy is known for her expertise in the world of trauma and developed evidence-based trauma-conscious yoga protocol based on the understanding that trauma is held within the cells of the body and mind, and refined this practice with Body-Mind Recalibration, which builds cognitive and somatic body-mind relationships. Judy's newest passion as co-founder of Yoga Unify launched a new paradigm to unify the global yoga community, preserving the traditions and elevating the profession. As a member of IAYT's Competency Evaluation Team, Yoga Alliance Advisory Board, online presenter, part of their core curriculum working group, the best-selling author, significant contributor to several books and in university lectures, Judy has been able to share her passion for this practice of yoga. Judy, thank you so much for being here with us today, and take it away.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you for having me. I'm really excited to present for this next hour that we're together. A little bit of background about trauma, PTS, what trauma conscious might mean, and for those of you who have heard about post-traumatic growth. So I'll give you a little bit of background about the organization I created, and we'll talk a little bit about the biological effects of trauma in the body-mind, and then how do we move forward to towards post-traumatic growth, or to heal from, or just to navigate through life. As we've all experienced since last March of 2020 with the COVID, we're all dealing with this unknown animal, so to speak, out there, this situation where we don't really see a clear end. And that, sadly to say, is one of the premises of trauma. So when you look at what our mission and vision, and by the way, this is out at the Midway in San Diego 3 years ago now. We had a big yoga festival. We had 800 people practicing. So you can clearly see this is our focus, to bring to our veterans, our active duty, and all of their family members. In addition, we added first responders 2 years ago. And we want to bring them the very best mindfulness practice we possibly can. In addition to, we've expanded into some outpatient behavioral health therapy too. So I started this. You'll see the gentleman in the center, that's Bo McBain. And sadly, Bo is no longer with us here in person. So he is the reason why Connected Warriors started. I worked with him when he had come home from 5 tours in the Middle East. He was an Army Ranger, and he was diagnosed with ALS, as you might know, as Lou Gehrig's disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. And the gentleman down in the far right corner is Ralph Iovino. Ralph Iovino, I had taught to be a yoga teacher a few years before meeting Bo. And after Bo passed, I worked with him and his family for almost 3 years. And after Bo passed, I felt compelled by seeing a movie, The Hurt Locker, which won the Oscar that year. And that it brought me to the realization that our military members are trained, they're probably the best trained in the world to do what they do. And they're trained to be totally present in chaos or war. They're not trained to be present in peace, even between deployments, when they come home between deployments, between missions. And so that's what to my mind is, as I said, to your best health, you have to be able to be present in chaos and peace. And that is what Connected Warriors Trauma Conscious Yoga teaches all of us, tools and techniques on how to be truly present in chaos and peace. That picture was taken in Afghanistan. We had a very robust training there. And now, right, 20 years later, our guys and gals are finally going to come home this year. So we're very proud to have been able to support them in multiple countries. You can see where Connected Warriors has been. We have an actual memorandum of agreement with Department of Veteran Affairs to provide yoga programming. Prior to COVID, we had classes in 26 states, 9 countries. We were in 31, well, actually now it's 35 VA hospitals and vet centers. We are also on 16 active duty military installations. We had over 150 classes a week, and we had, in the time we started, we have had over 160,000 visits with 0 reported suicides. We're currently working in our 4th clinical study, and I personally have taught over 3,000 teachers nationwide and maybe even worldwide because they all move. So this is the scope. This is who we serve from the Armed Forces perspective. There's 21 million veterans. There's 3 million active duty guards, National Guard. And it's really the big picture is the 60 to 80 million family members. And with that, we're looking at about a third of the US population. So this is a significant, as I call them, tribes that we actually serve. Now, one of the significant reasons for the suicide rate, which as you've probably heard, is greater than the traditional mainstream civilian rate, is because of what you see in the center of the gap. And I'll talk about that in a moment. So you can see where the suicide rates are. In 2020, the VA, Department of Veterans Affairs, have released their suicide rates, and it was up 25% last year, which is sad to say, no surprise to anybody who has survived the pandemic process, as we have all done, because the suicide rate in the civilian population has also increased. One of the big statistics that is being more politicized, or that's not even the right word, publicized, is what we call MST, military sexual trauma. 1 in 3 females are subjected to it, and 1 in 5 males. It is quite a significant issue within the military. And the VA locally here asked me to create a training for yoga teachers to provide classes for MST survivors. So the scope of need, when I really work to drill down to understand why is it now so many more suicides than maybe in other times? And the reason has to do with how many civilians are understanding the war situation. So if you look, it's pretty simple. In 1947, 47% of the US population families had somebody actively serving. So it really equates to 100% of the population in the US was fully aware of the war and was serving in some way. Where in 2017, less than 1% of families had somebody serving, which means no one really knew. And that is what I hear time and time again. I've lectured at high schools where the kids didn't even know that we were still in war. And so I think that's a big piece of it. If you understand, as I'll talk a little bit here, as to why that is such a critical situation. So when you look at trauma, what is trauma? You know, let's just say this: every human being on the planet today, every living creature on the planet today has had some sort of trauma in their life. It may not have been severe trauma in which to end up with post-traumatic stress or even post-traumatic stress disorder, right? But we've all had trauma. If anybody has ever been on I-95 in Florida, you certainly understand that. If anybody has ever driven in Boston, and this I can speak because I've been there, driven in Boston, and the first time you've been to a roundabout, you would understand that. Again, it's anything that overwhelms our ability to cope. And that can be a physical, a mental, and emotional, okay? I want you just to take a quick understanding. Here's my analogy is, so if we cut ourselves, the body automatically knows how to heal that. We don't get involved in our cognitive mind. We don't say, okay, so send over so many white blood cells, right, to heal it. Okay, send over and start to coagulate the blood. We're not doing any of that. The body is just actually taking care of itself. And why is that important? Because the primary premise of this body mind is survival. And it will do almost anything to do that, to survive. So just kind of bear that in mind as we go along here. So what is post-traumatic stress disorder? And Connect a Warriors chose way back at the beginning to drop the D. We tend to put ourselves in a box with identification. We all do, right? You introduce yourself to somebody. I would say, hi, my name is Judy Weaver. I'm a yoga therapist. Well, I've put myself in a box, right? I could say, hi, my name is Judy Weaver and be done with it. But that's not what we tend to do. So having the D could put you in a box, and all of a sudden now you're completely identified with this post-traumatic stress disorder. So we chose not to, primarily because post-traumatic stress is the natural biological occurrence of trauma. It's normal. This is what happens. If you have a dog and you wash your dog, or they get in the water, what is the first thing the dog does when they're coming out? They shake like mad, right? They really, really shake because they felt maybe a little too much energy in the bath time. They may have just been having fun, but they are able to dissipate that excess energy, which is really what trauma does for us in a manner of speaking. And you can see, this is a great slide. When Ariana Grande, the singer, when she was experienced that event in England, in London at the concert, and they had the bomb go off, she actually posted, and this picture has been around for a really long time. She posted this picture with her statement that it's real and she's experiencing PTSD, because you cannot be in that situation and not have had some sort of residual effect on the body. So the trauma groove, I try to always give a simple way of understanding things. And because I'm older, I remember vinyl. Well, vinyl's come back now, but there's several generations that may not quite understand vinyl. And if you had vinyl, you knew that your favorite song, because you played that more than the rest of them, always got a scratch in it. And when you got a scratch in that part of the record, it would stay there and it would just go round and round and round. It would just repeat the same thing over and over. And that's very similar to what happens in our body mind with trauma. So the criteria, or not the criteria, but the elements of what can deepen the groove or even create the groove, the first is age. The younger you are, the less mature your nervous system is. So the less mature your nervous system is, the deeper the groove can be. Because our nervous system is what allows us to have resiliency. Control, lack of control. Literally the lack of control. And sadly, in the military, a huge amount of what happens with a lot of our military members is what happened is lack of control. And especially for our combat who are outside of the wire, they may be doing a mission and they get blown up from an IED. Well, they had no control over that, right? So there's the less control. Imagine a mission where military members do not make it back right to the compound. And so for those that are still alive, there's that survivor guilt. And again, it comes back to lack of control or even lack of choice. Frequency. Some people are feeling it immediately because everybody is different. We respond to trauma differently, and different types of trauma we will respond to differently. Severity. For some people, you just simply need one severe event, and that's enough. For others, their resiliency is a little stronger, so they may have to have had several severe events for them to really feel the starting of a deeper groove. And then the senses, that's our last piece. So we have 6 main senses that we all know of. Our 5 senses that are external, right? Sight, sound, taste, touch. But then you have that internal, what we call interoception, right? That is our ability to feel what's happening inside. That's a big sense. And working with one of our advisors many, many years ago, he's a neuroscientist and neurobiologist, I asked him why he thought yoga was so effective with trauma and PTS. And his response was that because yoga is one of the only modalities that actually touches all of those senses without the person practicing even having to have cognitively understood that. You go to a yoga class, you see what's happening, so you have the sense of sight. You hear the instructor giving you information and cues, so you have the sound. You have tactile, the touch, because you're touching something, either your hands, your body, whatever is touching something. And then that sense of taste is the breath, because you're inhaling and you're exhaling. The interoception, that inside sense, is happening the moment you come onto your mat, because the moment you're being asked to do anything, it's usually to sit, get tall, and then breathe. So you're connecting to all of those without cognition getting involved. Now let's apply military influences and trauma. So in the current wars, and this is mostly talking about after 2000, we have urban and technological warfare. Wars fought differently than it did back in the Civil War. Even back in Vietnam, it's a different way of fighting. So there's those influences. Multiple deployments. Back in Vietnam, you only had to have one deployment, then you could volunteer to go back. Now I'm hearing multiple deployments, and some of these National Guardsmen, they've been deployed 5, 6 times to the Middle East. And I'm not talking about missions, I'm talking about real deployments. We're not meant to do that. Military sexual trauma is really grown, and the way we separate, the way our military separates, which is you get a DD 214, is different than it used to be. When my father, I'm adopted, when my father came back from World War II, they were not flying our military back and forth on planes. They were putting you on a ship, and you had quite a bit of time on the ship with your team members, so to speak, with your comrades. So you got to move with them back home into the US. So you were together, you got to continue to have conversations. You know, think about that. They were able to decompress together, which is the key. In the Civil War, when the nighttime came, fighting ended. So again, they would sit around and they would be able to talk about what happened during that day, and they were able to decompress as time went on. So there's a big difference in the way we fight. So here's just an example. And one of the factors as to why we have also so much issue with our younger men and women when coming home and then reintegrating back into society is because 2/3 of all of our military members that were deployed after 9/11 were under the age of 29. So here's the trauma groove and the way we develop and we're born. So you're born at birth, you see on that bottom right corner, this beautiful clay ball. Everybody is that. And you come out that. Now you live your life, and we're making a clay pot. We're all going to be clay pots. Let's just pretend that. And so life, right? Everything you can see on the potter's wheel, you can see the little grooves that happen. So that's life. Everything, good, bad, the ugly, everything is happening. And now let's say we all have trauma. We do, trust me. I was born in 1960 after the Korean War. I was born with PTSD. That's the multi-generational trauma that we all have experienced. So now you're now 29 years old and you're put into the kiln. And out of the kiln comes you, a beautiful clay pot with all of your grooves, trauma grooves, happy grooves, whatever the grooves are. But now they're hard. So imagine now taking that trauma groove, how are you going to smooth it so you don't live right just in that trauma groove? Well, if you took a hammer and chisel, you would break the pot. That's not what we want. So I call trauma conscious yoga as a pathway to post-traumatic growth. It is the finest sandpaper known to man. And all you're doing is you're smoothing one grain of sand at a time from the groove. And over time, the groove gets smaller and smaller, because the reality is the issues are in the tissues. Trauma is held cellularly. It's not up here in the mind. It's not between the two ears. No, it's in the entire body mind. And in order to heal from that, you have to get everybody on board. You have to get the body on board back with the mind back on board with the body, and it all wants to play nice together, so to speak. So as I just said, the issues are in the tissues. I usually have this whole long thing about in details on all of this, and we'll talk just briefly. So the cranial brain, the nervous system, our chemistry, our epigenetics, and our neuroplasticity. Those are all of the components of how we are, where we find ourselves, and then how we can change. So our nervous system, I'm sure everybody has heard about this because if you watch any kind of TV through the pandemic, there's been a lot of conversation about it. Fight, flight, parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest. So if you just look at the two pictures, where do you want to be? Do you want to be the person over on the left, or do you want to be the person over on the right? Well, here's our reality. This is what I said earlier. We want to be present, chaos, and peace. The person on the left is in chaos. The person on the right is in peace. You want to be able to go back and forth between one or the other. But you really want to live over here in the right, rest and digest, in the peace side. But you certainly want to go visit the chaos side. We have to. We live life. Life is not easy. But you want to be able to figure out how do you get back over to the peace side as quickly as possible when it's appropriate. Okay? So that's the nervous system, and that's part of our autonomic. Sympathetic nervous system is our fight flight. That's what keeps us safe. It allows us to pick up a car off our kid if that were to happen. That's what gives us that ability. And then you have your parasympathetic, your rest and digest. That's the place where we really want to live. But you got to be careful with that too. You know, there's that saying, too much of a good thing is not a good thing anymore. And so there's an aspect for those people who are so traumatized that what we call the dorsal dive, they are so hypo aroused that they live pretty much, if you were to think about it, there's hardly any reaction, right? Because in their ability, their body mind, in order to survive and move forward, it needed to numb everything out. And so we don't want that either. So there's a fine-tuned place that we all can find ourselves. So now yoga really can connect warriors, and I'll go a little bit more on here. So you can just read this slide. So basically, what is yoga? I have created an acronym because I found in the military, especially, you can imagine these guys and gals who are war fighters, yoga, the preconception is, oh, I'm sitting around, I'm a girl that's flexible, I'm wearing these stretchy pants, and I'm going home. That can be the stereotype. When in reality, yoga is your own growth and awareness. Nobody can fight that because everybody wants growth and awareness, right? And now, how do you connect back to the body mind if the body mind is kind of checked out? Because that's kind of what trauma does. The body gets hijacked, and that's what flashbacks are about. That's what triggers are about. Remember, I said trauma is held in the cells of the body. Okay? Now, the consistent practice of yoga, a consistent practice, will start to develop a stronger nervous system that becomes then resiliency. And resiliency means pretty much I can take my body and I can contort it into any way, shape, or form, but then I can come right back to where I was before. Or it can mean I am so enraged and I've got to deal with this situation. Oh, okay, the situation's over. Okay, now I can chill, right? That's our resiliency, what we want to be. So in the military perspective, because the 8 limbs of yoga in the yogic world is pretty much a yogi's how to live your life on and off the mat. It's kind of like a guidebook, so to speak. And if I'm talking into the military personnel and I say yamas and niyamas, which are pretty much our code of ethics, there's 5 yamas, 5 niyamas. It's kind of like the 10 commandments, so to speak, right? However you want to look at it. From the military perspective, it's a standard of conduct. Trust me, they have thousands of books about standards, how to do things, from how do you change the roll of toilet paper, right? Which direction does it go? How do you do anything? There's a standard of conduct on how to do that. Asana, for us, that's the postures. It's our physical practice. Well, in the military, it's PT, physical training. They completely can understand that logic. Pranayama, breath control or breath regulation. From the military perspective, that's pretty straightforward. How do you shoot a gun? Well, you actually shoot it in that moment of non-breath. After you exhale is when you squeeze the trigger, right? So it's that moment of that control of breath. So military members certainly understand that. Pratyahara, that is our, you can call it withdrawal of senses or being able to be separate than your senses maybe. In the military, they are trained. They are more trained than we civilians will ever be on senses. How to either restrict them or how to use them in a way that they need to complete their mission and whatever that might be. So I'll give you a little story. One of our students, a Vietnam veteran, Marine Corps, and he ran the small units. So he had a unit of maybe 6 Marines, and they were the kind of the search or kind of the advanced patrol, so to speak. And one particular mission, they were near a river, and their unit took a little break. And as they were breaking, they heard the enemy coming. So they got themselves to hide literally in the bushes where they were. And the enemy was maybe, I don't know, 10, 20 feet away from them. And they had to be so quiet. They had to not be seen, heard, or felt even for about 20 hours until the enemy left, or it would have been a whole big to-do, right? So they really, really understand their senses and how to control them. Dharana, dhyana, so for us, that is literally focus and concentration or meditation. That kind of speaks to the same thing in that story. And then samadhi, that is for a yogi, that is achievement of enlightenment, complete absorption with the universe, if you want to go into the metaphysical world, or it just simply means that I'm neither here nor there, it's just I am. And so that, my little story there is that movie where you had the captain, Phillips, from the merchant ship that was captured by the Nigerian, I believe it was, pirates. And so our Navy SEALs and the Navy responded to save the merchant marine ship and the captain and whatever the crew they could. So at night, moving vessels in the dark, the SEALs, 3 bad guys on the small vessel, 3 bad guys, 3 shots, same time, bad guys gone. And in the yogic world, nobody wants to hear that, but that is their mission. That is their dharma to do that. And they're that much connected to their internal senses that they could achieve that. So that's how I would speak into the military, and they understand this. So they can really understand yoga quite well, actually. And if you go back in history of time, the Indian military hired the crazy yogis to teach them how to be present, be flexible, be strong. So post-traumatic growth, what is it for us, for trauma-conscious yoga? It's safe, secure, predictable for the practitioners. It minimizes triggers. It meets them where they are, which is critical. It changes the relationship with their body-mind, and it creates community. So those are really the components, if I were to describe to somebody. So this is, again, on the Midway. It was absolutely amazing. Anybody interested in how this all plays, Bessel van der Kolk is the world, I believe, scholar, practitioner in this space. And the body keeps a score. They have a Cliff Notes version. So if you really are just kind of interested and you want to kind of get a feel, read that one or read the whole book. But it is probably hands down the best understanding of issues in the tissues. The other book I highly recommend is Dr. David Berceli, and that's Bercelli, Trauma Releasing Exercises, TRE. And that story I mentioned about when you give your dog a bath and they shake, that's pretty much what it's about, because the body, remember, has one objective, and that's survival. And when the body has too much energy from trauma, it's kind of like a power surge in the body, because we're electrical and we're chemical. So that power surge in our body, it has to dissipate somewhere. And I understand that the medical community wants to wrap you up in a big blanket and keep you still. But believe it or not, Dr. Berceli says, if you let somebody who just experienced severe trauma shake like crazy, get a deep psoas release, they actually will dissipate that trauma, and it will not be there when they go, because our bodies process at night when we sleep. It will dissipate and it would not become PTSD. So that's a concept, which I deeply believe that. So I'm going to talk about these next bits, because this is the portion within our practice that are key and part of how I develop the protocol. And then we will experience it. So the last, let's say, I think do we do Q&A, Melanie?
Yes, we can do that the last, yeah.
So
last
how long
minutes.
do you want to plan on a Q&A? 5-10 minutes?
5-10 minutes would be great.
Perfect. Okay, so for that, so we have 20 minutes left. So I'll keep talking for a little bit. And so we'll take, let's say, 10 minutes to do a mini practice so everybody can experience this real time. And then we'll have Q&A. Okay, so bilateral stimulation. Let me come back a little bit to the cranial. So our brain, we're born, right? You're born with your nervous system. You're born with your brain stem, which comes from the spinal cord, right? Coming all up the spinal cord. And you pretty much come out with the right hemisphere fully developed, left hemisphere mostly developed. And it actually fully develops when the baby has words, can speak language, and can identify things. So that's when that left hemisphere really kicks on. In order for the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere to communicate, we have what we call, or Bessel calls, the mohawk. So that is called the corpus callosum. So it's the bridge that allows the right and the left to work together so that we have seamless operation, right? We're a bio machine. We have this prefrontal cortex, this thing in the front that gets us all in trouble. This starts to really develop as we become teenagers, and then fully developed by the time you're about 25 years old, more or less. That gives us our executive function. Trauma actually damages, hurts the corpus callosum. It hurts it. And so imagine if you have the right and the left, and the thing that bridges it together, if it's not really all functioning, that means that you're not completely functioning at high efficiency, at your highest efficiency. It does not mean for a moment you're not functioning. It simply means your efficiency is not as great. That you may not have the ability to have, oh, I have a thought, I need that word. Oh, okay, well, it might take you a bit more. Or can you stay on task and focused, right? So we call this bilateral stimulation, and it is the basis of EMDR, which is a psychological modality that helps reduce and obliterate trauma for some people. And what that is, in that case, it's eye rapid movement. It's the eyes moving back and forth pretty rapidly, which is bilateral stimulation. So anytime you cross your midline with your arms, anytime you use your eyes to cross your midline, so here's my midline here at center. And so if I turn my head, I've crossed my midline, right? If I lift my right arm up and I keep my left arm forward, I'm doing something asymmetrical, which means I am crossing my midline. So that's a huge component in coming back to health and wellness and functioning of everything. The next part is conscious breathing. So for the body, in order for you to get into the nervous system, right? To get into it and do any kind of repairs, to strengthen it, you have to have conscious breath, because the autonomic nervous system, of which the parasympathetic and the sympathetic belong in, is that system of us that we can't control. It controls our heart rate, it controls our blood pressure, it controls our digestion, it controls all that stuff we have no control over, except for the breath, which we do have control over. And so, since it is something we actually can control, it's the doorway. So here's the nervous system. So if I consciously breathe, I just open the door, right? Now the door is open. But you can see my hands are still together. I haven't yet been able to walk through the door into the nervous system. And that comes from connecting or synchronizing conscious breath and movement. So now, I now have a complete open door. And that would look something like this. Inhale, my arms up, look up. Now I just synchronized breath and movement. Now, not only did I open the door, I can now open the door wide and walk right through. And now everything I do is going to help create, strengthen the nervous system for that resiliency. Community. You know, I love yoga. I'm a yoga therapist. I believe it has so many benefits on almost every level of our humanness. But let me just say this, and I think we've all heard this, and I know I've heard it on CNN and on all the stations, MSNBC, on Fox, it's on every news outlet, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. They talked about oxytocin, the hormone that is the happy hormone or love hormone, they talked about it, or whatever word you want to put on that. So that is a hormone we all have. And that hormone is released when you are in community with other like-minded individuals having a good time. So as much as I love yoga and as much as I can prove to you medically and scientifically the benefits of yoga, because I can, the community piece is the piece, because that is the one that connects us humans to humans. We are tribal by nature, and the military is the single largest tribe, our military, in the entire world. And that is a problem when they come back here into the civilian life. It's not a problem when they're in the military. It's a problem when they come back. So I'll give you my little quick story. You know, we're a nonprofit. Nonprofits never have any money. And we had a few bucks. It was probably about not quite a year into starting Connect the Warriors. We had a few dollars, so we decided we'll make t-shirts. We'll make t-shirts with a logo on it. Now, up until this time, all of my students were coming with their branch of service shirt on. So I'd have my Marines, Air Force, Army, Navy, and you would have occasionally an Air Force person and really rarely a Coastie. And they would not talk. It would be like high school. You have all the cliques, right? And they were not talking amongst themselves. They pretty much stayed within their own little mini community. The Navy and the Marines would throw blocks at one another. And that would be pretty much the extent of the communication in the room. So that particular day, I get the shirts out. I hand them out. Every single person took off their branch of service shirt. They put on the Connect the Warrior shirt. They became a new community, a new tribe, and they had a new uniform. From that moment on, they all talked to one another. And that is the value of this organization, almost greater than the yoga. Who plays with us? Well, the gal, Melanie, she's in the center. Her name is Melanie too. In the center at the top, She is a warrant officer in the Army Special Operations. We have veterans on the far right who are up at the New York Manhattan VA. We have down on the bottom left, that is in Kuwait. We did a yoga festival there several years ago. And in the top left, that is at William Kling at the VA hospital here in South Florida. So those are who plays with us. And then we have, just thank you. So I'd like to take this time now and do a little mini practice with everybody, okay? And I guess should we leave the screen up, Melanie, or take it down, or what would you like to do?
I think we could see you better if we take the screen down. So if you're going to do some movements, that would be
perfect. Good. Stop sharing then. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, everybody. So take a moment and get comfortable. And that could be sitting up or laying down. You choose. Okay. Everybody is different. I'm going to just make a couple adjustments so I can get the screen correct. Okay, there we go. All right, so I choose to sit up, but you can do whatever works for you. Eyes can be open or closed. Again, this is a practice of choices for everybody. And as you notice the weight in your body, whether you're sitting or lying down, allow yourself to feel the length in the body. As you begin a conscious breath of inhaling, awareness that you're breathing in. And allow the exhale, which is just awareness that you're breathing out. And as you continue this rhythm at your own pace of your inhale, feeling yourself open up from the very inside of you to the outer edges, and allowing yourself to exhale, letting go and softening something. As you continue the conscious breath of inhaling, maybe feel the lightness and the length through the crown of your head. And as you exhale, allow your shoulders, maybe your hips, to soften and let go. And continuing to take the inhale, noticing you're breathing in, and as you feel your exhale happening, breathing out. And take 2 more conscious breaths just with that feeling of inhaling and exhaling. And notice 1 more. Great. Gently place a hand on your belly and a hand on your chest. And this time you're feeling yourself breathe. So as you inhale, notice your hands moving in or out, top hand or bottom hand, and notice what happens as you exhale. Hands moving again, in or out, top or bottom. Good. Again, another conscious breath. Inhale. Feel which hand moves first and in which direction, in or out. And as you exhale, again, just feeling which hand moves first and is it coming in or out. Good. Now with your next inhale, see what happens at the hand at your belly. Does it move away from your spine first? And does your chest lift up after that? And as you exhale, come back to the hand at your belly. Does it draw back into the spine first? Or does the hand at your chest do? Again, just investigating, inhaling, feeling yourself breathe. Awareness of the hand at the belly. What is it doing? And as you exhale, the hand at the belly, checking out what it's doing. With the next inhale, notice that the hand at the belly will move away from the spine as it moves out as you inhale. And with the next exhale, notice that the hand at the belly will soften in towards the spine. And take 3 more conscious breaths just with that feeling. Inhaling when the hand at the belly moves away from the spine as you breathe in, you know that you're getting the full diaphragmatic breath. And as you exhale, when the hand at the belly softens in towards the spine, you know that you're using the diaphragm to help you exhale. And one more, just feeling what's happening. And when you finish that, release your hands, gently open your eyes, take a moment there. And now just shake your arms out, right? Just think maybe your dog or a cat, I don't know, your cat. We tried to wash our cats, I think. Okay, so now let's do a little bit of what we call lateral bending, and you'll feel how you're crossing your midline. So bring your arms, and even on the floor, if you're laying on the floor, you can completely lay on the floor, just do the same motions on the floor. Okay, arms by your sides. Inhale, reach the arms out wide and up over your head. If you're on the floor, just look straight up at the ceiling. Otherwise, feel free to look up at your hands. Exhale, just the right arm down by your side. So if you're sitting up, put your hand down on the floor. Inhale, lift long through the left side. Everybody do a lateral bend to the right. So even if you're on your back on the floor, think about bending at your right waist. So you look like maybe a half a moon. Good. Take one more breath here. Beautiful. Inhale brings you all the way up to neutral. Right arm comes up. And now exhale the left hand down. Inhale, get tall through the right side. Exhale, lateral bend over to the left. So again, think of where your midline is. Your midline is always in the spine. And now it's kind of bending over there to the left. Good. One more breath here. And inhale, bring yourself back up. Add your left arm. Now you're in neutral. And exhale the arms down by your sides. So did you have that sense that just one arm up can be stimulating the bilateral, which is all we want to do. We want to keep feeling that stimulation. Now in a twist, you can feel it even more. So arms by your sides. So those of you laying down, you can still do the same thing. Inhale, reach the arms out wide and up. If your neck allows, only those sitting up, look up. Exhale, twist to the right, lower your hands. So as you inhale, get tall, left hand comes across to in part of your right leg, and exhale, keep looking over the right shoulder as you twist your torso to the right. And take 2 more breaths. 1 more. Beautiful. Inhale, gaze only forward. Exhale there. Inhale, bring your arms all the way up. Look up again if you're sitting up. Exhale, twist to your left and lower your hands. Now your right hand comes across any part of your left leg. Inhale as you get tall, and exhale, twist to your left. Your gaze continues to move left as you breathe. Beautiful. And take 1 more breath here. Inhale, gaze only forward. Exhale there. Inhale, carry your arms up, look up. And exhale, arms all the way down to your side. So that's giving you conscious breath, bilateral stimulation, and especially when you're in your twist, when you carry your eyes the opposite way, you've just crossed your midline. Then you unwind your body, moving single arms, single legs. You can apply this in many different ways. So the last practical skill I want to leave you with, or technique, is what we call alternate nostril breathing. So alternate nostril breathing, again, is something that is designed to balance the right and left hemispheres of our brain. It helps to reduce anxiety. All right, so I'll give you the traditional hand thing. I'll show you options. So traditionally, you would have your index and your middle finger down. You control the closing of the nostril like little pinchers with your opposite thumbs, opposite fingers, opposite knuckles. Whatever works for you. You don't even have to close the nostrils. You can just use your mind to feel that you're closing your nostrils, because there's a lot of people, for whatever their reasons, they're just not comfortable, and that creates anxiety and stress. That's not what we want ever. Okay? So to begin, 3 conscious breaths. So feel your inhale and your exhale. 2 more, noticing the inhale and the exhale, and 1 more. Good. Now, whichever method you want, close your right nostril, inhale through your left. I will count 1, 2, 3. Close your left, exhale right. 1, 2, 3. Inhale right. 1, 2, 3. Close right, exhale left. 1, 2, 3. Inhale left. 1, 2, 3. Close left. Exhale right. 1, 2, 3. Inhale right. 1, 2, 3. Close right. Exhale left. 1, 2, 3. Inhale left. 1, 2, 3. Close left and exhale right. 1, 2, 3. 1 more. Inhale right. 1, 2, 3. Close right and exhale left. 1, 2, 3. Release your hands if you used them. Take 3 conscious breaths, feeling your inhale and your exhale. 2 more. Just notice that you're breathing. And 1 more. Beautiful. So let me just add a piece to that alternate nostril breathing. You've noticed that I closed the right nostril and started on the left, the inhale. And that's because the left side of our body controls the brain, right? The right hemisphere controls movement on the left hemisphere controls movement on the right. So the same thing, when we inhale here, we're really affecting the right brain, and that is our chill side, where we get to relax, right? And so whenever you want to bring yourself or deep down regulate yourself, you want to focus on starting and stopping on the left. If, however, you're more in that hypo-aroused where you can barely get off the floor, you want to start and stop on the right. So you can see, you can tune this to your own needs in the moment, which is beautiful. Okay? So, questions?
Do we have any questions, anyone? I did, Judy, want to just ask, is the regular practice of yoga then really does help individuals with PTSD function better overall with regular practice? Is that something that you do see?
100%. And what we hear is from family members, there's fewer PTSD days at home. That's one of the things I hear. The second part, which is a big component of PTS, is lack of sleep, insomnia. And that's what I hear is I sleep. The days they come to class, they tell me I sleep like a rock that night. So those I see.
Because you've really been doing this for so long, have you noticed how long it takes for individuals to notice a significant difference with the practice of yoga and the relief of their symptoms?
That's a tough question, only because everybody is different and everybody's trauma levels are different, and inherently their nervous system starts from a different place. But what I can say is within 1 or 2 classes, I'm hearing that I've gotten benefit in this way or that way or this way. I have a very, very dear friend of mine. He's a Vietnam veteran, and he came when I first started this. I think he felt bad for me because nobody was really coming. I couldn't get the village. I couldn't get anybody to come. So he felt bad. So he would come, and he only came, I want to say maybe 4 classes. In those 4, after those 4 classes, what he told me was we used to have serious road rage. That almost dissipated for him.
Wow.
And I'm talking, that's almost 11 years ago now.
Right. Wow. It's amazing. We do have a question here. Darlene said, that was great. Thank you. I can see more people wanting to do yoga. How would you suggest incorporating yoga in libraries this year, virtually and or in person?
Wow. So we used to teach a Connect to Warriors class here at the Boca Library. It can be done. A lot of library spaces have even outdoor spaces, which is a beautiful way of practicing outside. You could do it inside if you have a big conference room. You could do it virtually for sure. And you can have a mixed bag of virtual and in person. But I think that would be wonderful. And if you could get kids to do this, and they're more apt to do it, because yoga teachers who teach kids make it fun and happy. It's about animal noises. You get them starting at a young age, the development of their nervous system, their brain development, their body, their connection is huge.
Awesome. Thank you. With COVID, in your practice, are you seeing more of the virtual practice? Or are you seeing in-person practicing starting to come back?
Well, we're starting to see that. So in the yoga world pretty much shut down, and we've lost so many teachers and studios because there was nobody in person. I started teaching last June in studio, but virtually, if that makes sense. And I had 3 live people, but they're family members, so I knew where they've been. So yes, I think that we're seeing a slow reopening. The VAs are not yet open. I've only got a couple VAs that are open to that, but we pivoted and created a whole virtual online with the VA to provide some classes to do that. But I think more and more people are starting to come back.
Awesome. Now, with your Connected Warriors program, how does that work? Are you just connecting with different agencies throughout the nation and running your program, or exactly how does that work?
Yeah, so, well, because we have our MOA with the VA and we are in multiple VA hospitals and vet centers in 28 states, I think now, the way it works usually is our yoga teachers donate their time. In the yoga world, Seva is the foundation. Ethics and Seva are the foundation of a yoga component for teachers. And so it's giving back, it's community service. And so they donate their time. They do our training, they donate their time for the teaching of the classes. And those teachers that we have in person in the VA hospitals and vet centers, we are actually able to give them a little stipend, at least to cover their time, not much, but at least maybe their travel to and from the class. So that's how we've been able to do that. I used to run around like a crazy person around the US. If somebody said, oh, I'm interested in bringing a class, I would go out there. And so I do this at no cost. I don't charge anything to anybody as far as my time. I'm a complete volunteer to the organization. And I used to cover all my travel. And I would go there and they would get a whole bunch of yoga teachers in a place. I would teach them. And then we would create a regional person who is responsible, boots on the ground, and then they would start the program in the local community. This is all a community effort.
Wow. Shayna said a neat virtual addition to online yoga might be another person with the instructor using crystal bowl sounds or other auditory meditation additions. Can you talk a little bit about the use of sound with, because I know that's a powerful component. I know we only have a minute left, but
it's hugely powerful, but bear in mind this, and this is one of the things when we do the training is, that's one of our main senses, right? Yeah. And so imagine being a service member who just came back from the Middle East and they're hearing call to prayer 5 times a day. So that's why we don't speak Sanskrit in class, because Sanskrit sounds a lot like you know, Arabic or any of the Middle Eastern dialects. And we don't use crystal bowls to start with. We don't use chimes. We don't use any of that because that would bring back that potential trigger immediately. And remember, one of our primary foundations of a trauma conscious class is reduce trigger. Now, the point is, we don't treat our service members like babies. That's never. We don't feel they're broken. We don't treat them like babies. What we do is we reduce the triggerability, because the goal is that they eventually can go to any yoga class anywhere doing whatever it is they want and they don't get triggered. That's the goal. But we have to get them to where their nervous system is strong enough to understand that that was not Iraq or Afghanistan. This is right here and now, and that's just a crystal ball. Otherwise, their body literally gets hijacked and they think they're back in Iraq or Afghanistan or some other place.
Yeah, thank you. Shauna said, oh, wow, very sensitive. I hadn't thought of that. Thank you very much. And I think that's a great point to come up because it really is important. So that was a great kind of piece to end with. Thank you so much, Judy. This was a great presentation. Welcome. I really appreciate your time. And thank you, everybody, for being present here with us.
Thank you for having me, Melanie.
Thank you. Take care. We look forward to bringing this programming into our libraries. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Take care.
And have a great day, everyone. Bye.